Alrighty, we are good to go. For anyone tuning in, I'm Amy, and I'm sitting with the great Christopher Priest, and we're going to talk about all things Dynamite for just a little bit today. And really quick, one more. Again, I know I've said this a million times already. Christopher, thank you so much for being here. And I know it's crazy. We spoke on the phone before, and we've mostly chatted through emails. And real quick, I'm so sorry for being so annoying, having to ask you for stuff. Can I say that first?
You haven't been annoying at all, but thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So, yeah, we're just talking a little bit about Dynamite, and we're promoting our Humble Bundle. The link is in our info down below. And yeah, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Dynamite with, I think, almost all of our series that you can have 74 titles for just $20, and it all goes towards the Heroes Initiative. And it's a fantastic charity that helps out comic creators in need. And we're over $9,000 today at this point. So it's a big difference from yesterday. So thank you to everyone who's gotten one so far. If you haven't, go please check it out. But also I hope you sit with us for a few minutes and talk Dynamite. So,
well, let's clarify something. So
yeah.
it's Dynamite's 20th anniversary, but is this the 20th anniversary of Dynamite Entertainment, of Dynamite? In other words, is it the 20th anniversary of their publishing? I'm sorry?
Entertainment.
Yeah, because my recollection is that Dynamite existed quite a bit longer than that, because back in the 90s, when I was working on Black Panther, and then they booted me off of Black. No, I don't know what happened. With the series ended, and we started doing a series called The Crew over at Marvel, and I was looking to do a special promotion for The Crew, where we wanted to impact a music CD in with the trade paperback. What I wanted to do was take some independent producers, some up and coming producers, and people who are just anxious to get their music out there. And what we wanted to do was to get Double XL Maxi magazine or the Source magazines, one of those trades, to pick us up, to distribute The Crew, to get that particular item into the Black community, to open up new channels of distribution. I was looking for someone to help us do that, because Marvel was not being very cooperative. And Nick Barucci actually stepped forward and offered to finance the whole thing, to pay for the manufacturing of the CD and the shrink wrapping with the trades and all that stuff like that, if they could include the Dynamite catalog on there. And that's when Dynamite was they were doing merchandising. They're doing statues and things like that, collectibles and things like that. So that was my recollection, that Dynamite is actually had pre-existed the publishing by quite a bit, and I don't have an extensive idea of the history of Dynamite before they began publishing, but they've always been a friend and supporter of the industry, and a big supporter of the work that we do. That was an exciting idea that actually we should probably swing around and revisit at some point. Because I think that there are enormous opportunities outside of the traditional channels of Diamond and whoever's distributing Marvel and DC these days, that there are enormous opportunities out there. And that a company like Dynamite, that not only publishes, but also understands the merchandising and collectible markets, could lead the way in terms of opening up new veins for our product to reach new readers.
I'm glad you shared that story. Thank you. And I know everyone gets confused. Even I got to remind myself sometimes, like, we have Dynamite Entertainment, which is all of our titles, and then Dynamic Forces is all our collectibles.
There we go. That's
like our
what it
crazy
was.
cover art and
Yep. Yeah.
special titles. So yeah, that's really the main difference.
Yeah, that's what, you know what, thank you for that. Yeah, actually, it
Mhm.
was dynamic forces that that stepped up when we needed to do that. By the way, today I ran. I was shopping. I was minding my business. I was in Walmart minding my business, and I passed by this row, this aisle that had some books in it, and there were some children sitting on the floor, and they were reading whatever. They had gotten some books off the shelf and they were reading these books. And there's 3 or 4 kids sitting on the floor reading books. And I walked past them and I stopped and I turned around and I doubled back and I was just kind of in shock to see children reading. And I was like, wow, children still read? That's amazing. You know, and I was so happy to see, you know, I have this 13-year-old granddaughter who just refuses to read, you know, and I could hit her over the head with a bag of oranges, and she's still not going to read. I can't get this kid to read. She just won't do it. You know, she just acts like reading is just, oh, it's so horrible. It's the worst thing in life. Reading, no, no, don't make me read, no. And here we're like, you know, like 4 kids her age, you know, who are just like, you know, camped out on the floor in Walmart, and I was so thrilled. You know, so I go in my wallet and I give him some money. I said, "Look, let me buy you lunch. You know, go to McDonald's, get whatever you want. Let me buy you lunch." And they didn't want to take my money, and I'm like, wow, who's training these kids? Where are their parents? These are wonderful, wonderful children. I've never seen a kid not take my money, you know, let alone seeing a kid like, you know, voluntarily with no one making them, no one standing over them. They're sitting there reading, you know, and I'm like, this, you know, Amy, there's hope for the future. And we should be very happy about
I so am.
that.
Oh my goodness. So for Dynamite, you've had such an incredible career in comics. Whether it's, I mean, you've written so much for Marvel, you've written so much for us, and us specifically as part of the bundle, we have your Vampirella series. So, and well, I guess was it how does it feel to have your Vampirella as part of our 20th anniversary bundle?
Well, I think that's great. I've been desperate to get more people to get more people to read our book or to be exposed to our book. Um, you know, there's kind of a there's several levels of division within comic book readers. And some comic book readers, they like horror, like The Walking Dead, and some comic book readers, they like, you know, Paper Girls and Saga, and you know, and the kind of things that Brian K. Vaughan does, you know. And then there are those who are just diehard superhero fans and they just want the X-Men, and you know, and so on and so forth. And sometimes it's really hard to convince people who are really sort of focused on other genres to check us out, to check out what we're doing in the Vampirella book. Um, Part of it, Amy, is that because I think people decide what to read based on what they assume the book is about.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of have an idea. All right, here's Hawkman, and here's a picture of, you know, Hawkman with this battle axe or whatever the thing is on the cover, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then they will assume that you know, I assume that I know what this book is about and that it's going to focus on the Justice Society and Doctor Fate, whatever the thing is, and it may not, which may not be true. And I think there's a lot of people who just kind of assume that Vampirella is, you know, mainly about bloodletting and you know, gory details, or you know, or sex and violence and things like that. And our Vampirella book is it's about a young girl, or a young woman, excuse me, trying to make it on her own in the big city. She just happens to be a vampire from outer space. Minor detail, you know. So you know, it's funny, it's poignant, it's a little scary, although it's not very scary. I don't think it's a very scary book, but it has all these nuances, and I think it would appeal to a broad spectrum of readers, including readers that would not ordinarily think that they would want to read a book about a vampire. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so uh, uh, just being able to sort of include that material, some of that material, in what you're doing in this promotion is a wonderful idea and a wonderful way to expose what we're doing. And I hope that people will give us a shot and they will check it out. Especially check out the gorgeous artwork by my partner Ergun Gunduz, who is a Turkish artist, European artist, who does these wonderful things with color. And it's this wonderful sort of this lush European art style that is just amazing. And I think that we're doing just fun, amazing work. We've just sort of done a soft reboot with Vampirella issue 666, which just came out recently. So still time to jump in there. And just every page that the guy turns in, I'm just awed every time I see it. So I really very happy that we're in the mix here, and that it gives other readers a chance to just go, oh, that's what this book is about. That if I could just digress a second, we had the same problem with Deathstroke, where people would see the cover and assume that Deathstroke is about this evil assassin and this bloodletting and it's gore and violence and Deathstroke, and that's not at all what the book was about. Deathstroke was about the world's worst dad. It was about this guy that he had these two kids. He had three, but one was unfortunately died at the hands of the Teen Titans. So that's why he hates the Teen Titans. I'll get you kids. But he has these two children, and he's a guy who loves and wants to be loved, but is capable of neither. So the assassin thing is kind of his day job, which is what makes him who he is. But it's one of those cases where it was a constant struggle to overcome the expectations of the marketplace that would assume they knew what the book is about. And Vampirella routinely suffers from that same thing, because there's just an assumption that the book is, about A or B, when it's actually about, I don't know, J. It's way farther down the alphabet, and it's a lot of fun. And I just hope people would give it a shot. Give us a shot.
Awesome. What would you say is like the most fun or interesting thing about writing for Vampirella?
Well, I guess I want to say something positive about, to answer your question. But in so doing, I may sound a little negative if I say that, the sky's the limit. There's so much opportunity and so much untapped ground with Vampirella. For example, we just did Vampirella Year One, which was supposed to be kind of like an extended origin tale, how Vampirella came to Earth. But we started the story with Vampirella as a child in her childhood on Draculon, and Ergun and I started having so much fun doing Vampirella as a kid that I went, well, this would make a wonderful animated series. The only problem with it being an animated series, of course, is that if it's like a Saturday morning cartoon or something for kids, for Nickelodeon or whatever, the blood part, parents will probably have an issue with that, but we're having so much fun with that. And we realize there's this whole world. There's like, at least 20 years of stories of Vampirella growing up on the planet Draculon that is completely untapped, and then the early years where she arrives here, and she doesn't know the language, and it's 1969, and she's dealing with that world. There's a whole series that could just blossom out of that. That there's just she's been around for 50 years, and I don't mean to sound negative, but I feel like there's just been a kind of a cursory surface approach to the character. And what we're doing is like a more introspective deep dive, where we are just going, all right, taking it from a modern storytelling standpoint, and elevating the series and the character beyond simple satire or simple social commentary, and just kind of really like, what if this was a real person? What if this was a real
Mhm.
person in our real world, and how would that be? So it just feels to me that uh, uh, you know, I can effortlessly think of dozens of plot lines and dozens of storytelling opportunities with this character. Now, add on to the fact that that Nick Barucci and Dynamite Entertainment, that they're not imposing uh, they're imposing almost no restrictions on our ability to tell these stories, as opposed to when I'm working for Marvel and DC, and I will have stories approved by Marvel or approved by DC that are later rejected by their corporate parents because they're now owned by these media conglomerates, and the IP is now you're talking about $1 billion IP at stake. So, you get scripts that are now sent to like standards and practices, which is ridiculous. I mean, to the film people or the TV people, and they come back with like their ludicrous notes, and like, Batman can't have a dog, no dog for
Mhm.
Batman. I mean, shut up already. So I'm so used to having to kind of weave between the orange traffic cones of the lawyers, standards and practices, and all the overseers. And this is over and above the editorial departments. The editorial departments are wonderful at both places, and usually the stories get approved through editorial, but then they come back from legal, or they come back from standards and practices with silly notes. And I'm
Mhm.
so used to having to deal with that, and then I come across the street to Dynamite, and it's like a breath of fresh air, where they're just Vampirella is targeted toward an older audience. So there's fewer restrictions on what she can say, what she can do, what the situation she can be in. There's fewer language restrictions.
Mhm.
I could probably be a little saltier than I actually am, but I try to keep it to like somewhere close to what you might see on broadcast TV. So just kind of the freedom to actually be creative, um, without a heavy-handed big brother from a film studio, or a soda company, whoever's owning the company, the comic book company at the time.
Mhm.
That's real liberating. So that's one of the best things about what we're doing.
It's really cool. The air conditioner's not making too much noise, is it? It just turned on.
I can hear it, but I'm not. It's not making me crazy. I can hear you fine.
Okay. Okay, like next time I should make sure that thing's just off altogether. But I'm glad if it's not distracting, then okay.
That's okay.
You've written a lot. I mean, besides the main Vampirella series, like you mentioned, you did year one. You've done Vampirella Drac. You did Vampirella and Dracula as well, right? Or am I?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
me.
Which has been your favorite storyline to write? I'm curious.
Oh, come on now. Which of your children do you like the best?
Oh, sorry.
Wow. I'd have to really think about it. But so I wrapped up our first volume of Vampirella with issue 25, where
Mhm.
uh, maybe she marries Dracula, maybe she doesn't. Uh,
Mhm.
she, she gets married to a guy who may or may not be Dracula. That's a little bit more accurate. Um, and it just kind of I think that was a real uh, uh, a very touching, very poignant, very moving. I think as writers, all writers, we are trying to do something that's going to affect our readers emotionally, that is going to invoke their emotion, and move them in some way, in a memorable way. And I think that just leading up to that, where she rescues this child,
Mhm.
and then 20 years later she rediscovers the same child. Now 20 years later she still looks essentially the same, because she's a vampire. Right? She doesn't really age the way we do. So 20 years later she still looks pretty much the way she did, but now of course he's an adult, and she has to save him again,
Mhm.
and marrying him, uh, is an odd. You got to read it to make it for it to make any sense. But and even then, maybe it doesn't. But to marrying him is an effort to prevent the Dracula virus from terraforming this
Mhm.
young man and changing him into Dracula. So she marries him to complete a mission, but she really does love him. She's loved him since he was a little boy. She's always, first she loved him as we would love a child, certainly, but as an adult now she's falling in love with him. So it's this really nice love story and this really nice beat to kind of wrap that phase of our journey with Vampirella on. So that worked pretty well. Um, Beyond that, I think I have to talk about the current storyline, which began with 666, where we're
Mhm.
kind of doing a Groundhog's Day, where like, I wanted to go all the way back to our first issues when we took over Vampirella with her 50th anniversary. So some characters had died, some characters had moved on, some characters had changed, So when you pick up Vampirella 666, all those characters are back. They're back the way they were when our series originally launched, and there's something hinky going on, and we're having a bit of a Groundhog's Day thing. So it's not an original idea with this day that keeps resetting. Star Trek did it, and other people did it. So why not us? But what's fun about it is that if you've never read the series before, uh, uh, the current the currently shipping issues serve more or less as a primer where you
Mhm.
could kind of like get introduced to the cast and get introduced to the storylines and so forth. Um, if you have been reading our comics before, the current issues are hilarious because there are changes that have happened to those characters that are jarring and make almost no sense, but should be kind of amusing to people who are familiar with the characters and go, this is not right. So it's an interesting place to start, and I'm having a great deal of fun writing it. But Ergun is just turning in some of the best work. Not even some of the best work. He's absolutely turning in the best work that he has on the series. He's just evolved so much
Mhm.
over these few years, and the current work that he's doing is just off the chart. Every page that comes in, I'm like, wow, it's just off the chart. So you know, those are probably two of my favorites. What we're doing now is always going to be my favorite, and our 25th issue, our finale for the first volume, I think would have to be where I would start as my favorites.
Great answer. How's the feedback for Vampirella been?
I'm sorry, say that one again.
How has the feedback for Vampirella been? Have
Oh, it's been well. You know what? Well, it's been mostly positive. Well, I guess it's been, as far as I can tell, entirely positive. But then again, like people who hate us, I guess they post the hate stuff somewhere. I'm really not on social media, so I don't have a lot of sense about the sort of thing. And I never
honestly, it's
read,
healthy if you're not on social media. That's okay, in my opinion.
and I never read reviews because if you believe the good ones, you got to believe the bad ones.
Mhm.
Um, and it's really kind of annoying to like go on some website and okay, here's a review of Potato Man number 7 or whatever, and it's like Priest sucks and his mother's ugly, and I'm like, okay, all
That's
right,
just like, why would you do that? Like, who would
yeah,
ever do
I entertain the possibility that yes, I do suck, but leave mom out of this for crying. What did she do? You
that?
know,
Right.
um, so I really don't know, but I actually travel quite a bit to raise funds for the Hero Initiative. So
Cool.
I go out probably once every 6 weeks somewhere to a convention, to a show, to a store appearance, whatever. And I don't actually sell anything. Usually, if you see me at a convention, I'm
Mhm.
at a table and you might see some things on the table. There's nothing for sale on my table. I'm just, out there, trying to shake money out of you for the hero initiatives and whatever if you donate something to the hero initiative, I'll sign a poster or a comic for you or whatever the story is, or I'll sing a song or walk your dog or whatever it is you need. You know, I get out and about quite a bit, and at least in terms of the people that I interface with personally, I get very good reports back on Vampirella, and I'm very pleased about that. I'm really surprised that I don't know. I would have expected, because Vampirella can be a controversial character, um,
Hmm.
mainly because of the costume she wears. Let's face it. I mean, that's really it. And other creative people, creative teams have taken issue with, well, we think the costume is sexist or whatever the story is, and so they've changed the costume a few times, and they've tried out a different approach. And what I told Nick when I took over the book was that, no, I said I would write Vampirella, and if you put her in a different costume, she's not Vampirella. I mean, they took the underpants off of Superman, and he was no longer Superman. So thank God the underpants are back. There's just certain things that that you don't change, and also nowadays I see more revealing swimsuits on YouTube or in Vogue, for crying out loud, or even Sports Illustrated
I
has
understand.
more revealing costumes than what Vampirella. I don't think Vampirella is particularly, you know, I don't think her outfit is particularly controversial anymore. But
You're right. It's
you know,
essentially a swimsuit. You're right. Like that's kind of what it is. But
yeah,
I guess I see it from both sides. You know.
I do too. But you know, I guess my wish is that the people who may be objecting to the character on those
Mhm.
grounds, that they would give us a read, or they would pick up a couple issues of it, and what I am trying to do, I'm not saying I'm succeeding, because that's for the audience to decide. That's for the
Mhm.
readership to decide, is he succeeding? But I am definitely trying to write a book that is friendly to female readers, that where the main character has the power. She is empowered. She is making decisions. She's in charge of her own life. She's in charge of her own sexuality. She's not a victim. She's not being dragged around or beat up or thrown around or raped or anything like that. If anything, Vampirella is a female empowerment book. And she feels what we all feel. Vampirella wants what we all want. She wants community. She wants purpose. She wants love in her life. She wants, to have some sense of her own destiny. She struggles with some of the same things that we struggle with. And then of course there's the heightened issue of her being a vampire from outer space. Okay. But Vampirella is a book that I think that at least I'm trying to
Mhm.
craft in such a way that it would appeal to female readers. And I think the thing that may interfere with that is just the presumption that the book is sexist and that the character is sexist, and neither is true. Yes, sexuality plays some role in it, but it's her sexuality, and it's
Mhm.
it's 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 in the same vein as Sex in the City, or HBO's Girls, or anything of that nature. So yes, sexuality plays a role in it, but it's not an exploitive. It's not. This is not Hustler magazine by any stretch.
All right. Like that. That was a very eloquent answer. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And like I'll admit, when I first came to Dynamite, I wasn't. I didn't know a lot about Vampirella. I read a lot about these characters, but once you do actually read them and get to know them, you're right. It's not like you don't think about the costumes or whatever the controversies are. You're invested in the story and the character, and you find how to connect to them.
But that's certainly the goal, and I think that was the first thing. Like anytime someone just offers me a character, I immediately start thinking, well, number one, what could I do with this character that hasn't already been done? But mostly, two, how do I humanize this character and make this character real? And what aspects of my own life or my own experience and my own observation um, could I express through that character? And and that's how I kind of make a decision about whether to get involved with the character or not. Because Vampirella, I mean, Nick Barucci was he seemed he was really interested in having me write this character, and kind of he would talk to me about it over the course of maybe a couple of years, and I kept going, what? you know, because I had the same knee jerk reaction to the character that many people do, where I went, this is softcore porn or whatever it is, and I don't want anything to do with it. And it wasn't until I really, started to read the character's history and read a bunch of issues and really start to understand who the character was that I started to see these possibilities. And there's a scene in year one, I think it's issue 3, where Vampirella has her first flight, where like the Vampiri race, they have these wings that are hidden behind flaps on their back. But when they're kids, their wings are too small, and they can't actually fly. They're like chicken. They have the wings, but they can't fly. But once you reach puberty, you begin, the wings begin to grow, and they begin to get big enough to support you. So Vampirella is being hunted by these security forces because her mother was a pretty bad person, and that makes her fun to write. By the way, Vampirella's mother's name is Lilith, and she's kind of like the Agnes Moorehead character in Bewitched. If you're young enough or old enough to have seen that series, she's kind of a meddling. You never know whose side she's on. She's got a. So anyway, the cops are looking for her. So they're chasing, Vampirella, who's age 14 in this scene. They're chasing, the kid around because they think the kid can lead them to the mother. And she's running across the desert, and she, forces her wings out, which is very painful the first time. But then they come out to sort of the full length, and Vampirella's wingspan is 18 feet. So each wing is like 9 feet. When it's fully extended, it's like 9 feet each. And she takes off into the sky for the first time at age 14. And it's this glorious moment that Ergun captured perfectly, where she, takes off into the sky, and I go, it's a metaphor for coming of age. And as a male, I have no right and no real standing to authentically, write something that informs a woman about her coming of age. But that's about as closest as I could get, and I thought it was a very moving moment about a girl who is now officially becoming a woman, and what that means. And that's about as anti-sexist as we can get. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that these are moments that people miss because they don't get past the cover, and that's mainly because they assume they think they know what the book is about, but this is what the book is actually about.
All right. I think I just have one more quick question. As like you said, right now we started off again with Vampirella 666, and that storyline's going. Do you have? I'm trying to phrase this carefully. I guess what are there any other stories you hope to do with Vampirella in the future if you get the opportunity? Do you have a dream story that you haven't touched on yet?
Oh man. I probably have like a vault full of stories that I would like to tell about Vampirella. I would love to do a whole series about Vampirella as a kid, because we've created that world, we've created that character, we created that world. We started to do a spin-off series about. Oh, we've done a few spin-off series for characters that I either created for Vampirella or that I have contributed to, like Nyx. NYX, which was created by somebody else, but I kind of gave it my own spin, and they went with that her and Panther and some other characters there. But there is this deranged Apollo astronaut, who named Shane, Shane. He's called Shane the first. He calls himself Shane the First Man because he's the first man to walk on the moon, which is a
Mhm.
long story. He's not actually Neil Armstrong. He doesn't even know who Neil Armstrong is. It's a long story, but he's so much fun, and he's kind of our Joker character. He's kind of this nihilist, uh, sort of kind of a little out of his head for a number of reasons. And he's this murderous former astronaut who walks around. He's wearing the pressure suit, you know, and he has access to uh, Draculon's advanced technology, and so he makes a lot of trouble for Vampirella. And he's central to our 666 story, by the way. He is the reason why this day keeps repeating because he keeps doing something. He keeps going back in time and doing something. Uh, at any rate, would love to do like a Shane one shot or a Shane series. And I actually talked to Garth Ennis about having Garth write the thing because when I'm writing Shane, I am imitating Garth, and I'm probably not doing a very good job because he's absolutely brilliant. Nobody is better at this kind of dark humor and this kind of nihilism than Ennis. And we actually talked about him doing it, but he's of course he's Garth Ennis. He's very busy. He doesn't have time for my stupid character, But man, I would have loved to have got him to do that, you know. But beyond that, heck, let's run Vampirella for president. Let me write that story. Let's
Interesting.
I
I think
mean,
we
there's
should cover now.
yeah, yeah. I
And I
think
think
there's
like you said, Aragon could probably make a great cover for that.
oh, absolutely. But we are doing let's see, what are we doing here? We're doing I'm trying to remember what we're doing. So I'm writing two different storylines at the same time because we have two different artists working on the book at the same time. So after our 666, after that storyline wraps up with I think 669, starting in 670, we are oh yeah, we're doing a Draculina story. Draculina is Vampirella's evil twin. She's like Betty to Vampirella's Veronica. She looks exactly like Vampirella, except she has blonde hair and she's like seriously evil, And we have trapped her in this astral plane called the Dark World, which is like this realm that responds to your feelings, to your subconscious. So we're doing this Dark World a 4-part story with Draculina trapped in the Dark World, and then on the other side of that, we are dealing with Vampirella, kind of a future state story of Vampirella, about a calamitous near future where now we're celebrating not Vampirella's 50th anniversary, but we're celebrating Vampirella's 100th anniversary. So it's 50 years from now, and Vampirella has become probably the greatest menace that the Earth has ever seen. And how do we prevent that from happening? So it's just, I could do this all week. It's like it's just all this untapped ground with this character, and by now, uh, Amy, let me go back for a second. Anytime you're writing a character, it takes a writer and or an artist anywhere from, I would imagine, 8 to 10 issues to really get a handle on that character. Because the only way to really get to know that character is by doing. And unfortunately, the business has become so cutthroat now, um, and frankly, so expensive. And I'm not blaming the retailers, but a retailer has to make a bet, has to place his or her bet on a title very early in the game. So, getting those 8 issues to really get comfortable with an issue with a character is getting increasingly more difficult to do. So the advantage that Ergun and I have now is that we've been at this a while, and we have really kind of gotten in our groove with Vampirella, and we know her so well that now it's just writing her is effortless, because I just completely understand at least my interpretation, our version of Vampirella. And right now it's like, I could write this book, falling off a moving pickup truck, and it would be no problem at all. And there's just an unlimited, literally the sky's the limit on what we could do with this character and with her gals and pals. We've created a whole, group of friends and enemies and frenemies around
Mhm.
Vampirella. So yeah, there's just this, any number of things that we'd love to do.
Awesome. I'm genuinely looking forward to all of the upcoming stuff that you got. Um, One YouTube question popped up that said, "What are your favorite versions of Vampirella?" But I mean, you said you liked writing the kid version of her. I guess maybe he means like past versions of Vampirella, or how
Yeah,
would you?
well,
How would
he had sort of, the original Warren character, which was kind of taken satirically, where Archie Goodwin and Steve Skates and other writers, um, I don't think they necessarily took the character very seriously, and the character was just kind of like a host for other stories, and so forth. And then we moved to now watch me blank here. Not Warren, but it moved to the next publisher that took it over, who was escaping me because I'm thinking about it, and I wrote for them, and I can't remember
okay.
the name of the company, but it'll come back to me like after we're offline. It'll come back to me,
Mhm.
you know. So so that they began to sort of like introduce a more serious and more unified continuity to Vampirella, um, and I think their version was more sort of high fantasy, where she's just kind of like attacking hordes of monsters, and she's hooked up with Adam Van Helsing, and they're doing their they're doing that sort of thing. So it felt more like something very larger than life, something a little closer to Red Sonja,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And what I wanted to do was just much more personal. I thought the scale of that, I thought the scale had gotten too big and too impersonal. And I wanted to write about like young people at a cafe, talking about, having an argument over, uh, 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 you know, uh, should a vampire, perform, search and rescue missions, it's like there's just a hint of Seinfeld,
Mhm.
going on here, where, like they're having this animated discussion about if there's an alien invasion, where to
Mhm.
take the alien shopping, which mall, who has the best this or that, and they go off on tangents, and it's like real people. Like if we were all at like a Starbucks, the conversation starts here, and then it goes off in all these different directions. And by the time we're ready to leave Starbucks, we're talking about something totally different. And you
Mhm.
know, uh, and it's all about lifestyle. It's all about falling in love, and and she gets involved with this person, and this person wants it to be more than what Vampirella wants it to be. And how do I get out of this? And I wanted it to be personal. I wanted it to be more grounded and one to one, as opposed to Vampirella versus the Hordes of Darkness. I was like, you know, although you know what, to be fair, and I'm sorry, I'm being a jerk now. I'm sure that there is a market for that. There is a readership for that. That's just something that doesn't interest me personally. What interests me personally is, you know, a young woman trying to make it on her own in the big city, but she happens to be a vampire from outer space. And that's what really appeals to me. And I think that's what makes our particular take on Vampirella work.
Agreed. I know we could really just spend the rest of the day talking about whether it's Vampirella or I think anything for comics. We can't go for the rest of the day. But so let me wrap this up by saying again, thank you so much for being here. This was such a cool conversation. Thanks to everyone for watching. Please, I hope everyone checks out the Dynamite Humble Bundle. Again, the link is in the description below. Everyone check out, even if you guys just check out Vampirella by Christopher Priest, check out everything by Christopher Priest. And again, thank you to everyone for today. And I know everyone else will see me later this week talking with more incredible Dynamite writers, but because we're celebrating the 20th anniversary all week long. So thank you again, Christopher, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.